we are now going to get some reaction to what we just heard, this interview. Of course, quite a lot being talked about, speaking about some of the issues around municipalities, the dismal performance that we are seeing there as well, and service delivery crumbling in some of these municipalities. Of course, this is an ANC that is going into its conference, and we've got the chairperson of the Rivonia Circle, Songezo Zibi, who joins us now. Songezo, thank you so much for your time. Part of what Paul Mashadile says is that South Africans do care about, what is happening and who the ANC elects in December, because if the ANC elects wrong leaders, it is going to find itself in trouble. And he says that these are leaders that, are not above scrutiny. These are leaders that are not going to do anything to fix the country. And he's looking forward to be part of this leadership, this new leadership, as he calls it, that is going to be able to fix the country. Can they?
No, they can't. The ANC has been in power for nearly 30 years now. What Paul does not appear to be getting is that if you have 28 million out of 40 million people not voting either for the ANC or anybody else, it means they've checked out of the political system. I think South Africans care insofar as they want to know how much damage the ANC can bring onto everybody else, rather than being invested in any hope that there would be a positive outcome. The current president was the last hope for the ANC. It's gone. There is nobody. Thabo Mbeki said this himself, that the candidates, including Paul himself, do not measure up to the task of fixing the damage they have caused over the years.
And Songezo, one of the things that you were saying when you were speaking at the workshop at the weekend, and I'd like to borrow from what you're saying, is that if it is true that in a democracy the people get the leaders and country they deserve, then the purpose of this gathering must be to say what kind of country and leaders we deserve. These were some of your words as you were opening this particular conversations then that you were having at the weekend. But what kind of leaders do South Africans deserve right now? Because a lot of people have a lot of what they're saying, but do we even know what kind of leaders we deserve now?
Oh, yes, South Africans know. I think the fare they've got before them does not measure up to their expectations. What we find out is that people are just not impressed by what is on offer, and therefore they choose not to vote for the ANC or anybody else. If you have 28 out of 40 million people not voting, that is 70% of the population that is eligible to vote that is no longer interested. And therefore this democracy, the leaders that we have are elected by the 30% effectively. And the ANC's share of that is even less than that 30%. And that should tell us something. The people know so much that the resolution at this conference and workshop that we had on Saturday was actually to form a political movement where South Africans who have the capability to find solutions and implement solutions to the country's problems will have an opportunity to step forward and say that they are willing to stand up and be counted and start making a difference. Because after 28 years and lights going off while we're speaking in this interview, water shortages, crime, criminal gangs, and so on, I am not certain what December 16 portends for people as an option.
And I was going to, go to that point, because there does seem to be a number of people as well who are overwhelmed by the headlines we are seeing, crime, corruption. There's just so much going on that other people are saying it's so difficult to be optimistic as a South African. Is that the kind of, message that you're also getting as well? And how do people move from that position of apathy to optimism about South Africa?
South Africans are not apathetic. I'll tell you the other thing that overwhelms them is the kind of a conversation they see in platforms that are influential, whether it is in the media, whether it is in academia, and so on. For the last 2 to 3 months, we have had a bombardment of what the ANC is going to do. I was listening to Paul. He offered 40 minutes of nothing. That causes people to switch away from the political system. They're not apathetic. They're quite clear that they don't feel that the politics as we have it speaks to them. And that's partly to do with the obsessions that we tend to have about whether something is going to yield a positive result or not. What people know is that they're hungry, they don't have jobs, and so on. And when there's an obsession about one or other personality, which has got little or no relation to what they're going to be able to eat tomorrow, people switch off because it doesn't offer any possibilities for them. And therefore, I think what we need to recognize is people want to be re-engaged with a different type of politics. And that's the message that came out through clearly on Saturday.
And this is, something that really is the nub of the issue. People being re-engaged is going to also get to a point, Songezo, I suppose, of getting them to have a government that serves their needs, that works for them, and become part of what is happening in our country.
Yeah, in fact, the pledge that arose out of that gathering was a people's manifesto, because in a democracy, the people need to determine what they want, and those who wish to get elected need to carry out the wishes of the people. That's a different form of organizing. That is the first thing. The second thing is that people need to be clear what kind of leadership they want, what kind of representatives, the quality of those representatives. And they've got a choice to look at the fare that is available from political parties and reject it en masse and pick from among themselves those who are highly capable of doing so. And therefore, the path of an alternate movement politics to contest elections is what resonates with people at this point.
And someone watching tonight, Songezo, was saying that, I've heard so much talk with, people saying this is where South Africa needs to move towards, this is what we need to do, this is how people should be, engaged. Why should we trust, the Rivonia Circle? Why do we even begin to, entertain these guys, as they would call you sometimes, to say that honestly, boss, it's a waste of time.
I use that word, guys, a lot. The ethos in the politics that we've been cultivating, and the Rivonia Circle will not be the movement, we have been the platform for these conversations to take place, is that don't look around for leaders and implementers. Find people you trust. So trust yourself. Because what really turns people off, and I would use a stronger four-letter word, is the promise, which never delivers. And so the politics we've found really engages people is develop your own agenda, decide what you're going to prioritize, drive that agenda, those priorities, and set the political agenda locally, regionally, and nationally so that it commands the center of national attention and act in an organized fashion. And we've decided to call that the RISE campaign, and the RISE campaign will be its own animal that exists alongside the Rivonia Circle, but not as a subsidiary thereof.
All right, let's see how the RISE campaign then does. I hope we speak again in future, and really because this is, as some people have said, it's a crossroads moment to really see just how things go one way or another. But do appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming in. That is Songezo Zibi. Of course, he is the chairperson of the Rivonia Circle.